Are you ready?
I am ready.
Well done. Um, Great. So it's great to have you today, Christina. I'm very excited. It's been a long time. We met face to face. We had a lot of meetings, virtual meetings, and we met face to face in the old world when COVID didn't wasn't it was only a Chinese story. It was in Munich. It was really great. I remember it was a Peruvian restaurant, and we had been working with Simondo, so it's great to meet. For now, it's only virtually, but we'll meet soon again, hopefully in 2021, face to face. So this webinar starts with the fun facts. I don't know what will be your fun fact, but I'm excited to hear it.
Okay, I'm not really good with the fun fact, so I just thought I'm gonna say that I actually never wanted to start my own business or work for my own company. I always thought that like a 9 to 5 job is sort of nice. So I sort of stumbled into this whole Sermondo thing. It was not really my plan. So I would say that's one fun fact about me, that I'm somewhere I never thought I'd be.
Yeah, but in some cases, people who didn't want to have something are better than people who wanted it too much because then they are more genuine. So cool. That's not very funny. I'll agree to that, but we'll work on the funny part afterwards. Maybe you can share with us a bit of about Sermondo. Who is Sermondo, and what do you achieve, or what do you offer to sellers on Amazon or brands?
So Sermondo is a global platform where we list Amazon service providers. So Amazon sellers of all sizes from any country selling in any Amazon marketplace can come to our platform to find service providers to work with. Yeah, there are two ways how they can do that. They can either scroll through the listing themselves or use our matching service that we launched this year, in the beginning of this year. So sellers can simply tell us what they are looking for, what they look for in a service provider, and yeah, then I will connect them with the best ones from our network.
Great. And what do you think is the biggest benefit for brands or for people wanting to sell on Amazon that you're providing?
You mean in general when working with service provider or using Sermondo?
Sermondo, specifically Sermondo, what's the biggest benefit?
I would say that we're Amazon specialized is the main benefit, and also that our service is so personal. So it's not like we're some random affiliate site where we just list 10 random agencies who will pay us a commission when you click on the link, but we really try to understand the needs and the problems of each seller, and then according to that, pick a good match for them. And from what we have seen, there's no other platform who's working like that.
Not to my knowledge. Also, it's strange that in the States there's no similar offering. Is there none at all in the US, or
You mean
like a Sermondo like in the US, because it's a broad, like Amazon is much more mature in the US, so I'm surprised there's not such a service in the US.
Yeah, we were surprised too. And actually, most of our users come from the US, and also the major
Okay.
part from the service providers are located in the US, even though we are located in Germany. But we think it's a great mix because we have the knowledge from the European marketplaces. We're locals here. But because we work so much with US service providers and US sellers, we also get a lot of insights there that you wouldn't get any other way.
Okay. And I'm interested, like as an agency, obviously we're part of this Sermondo filings, is how do you select a different agency for different tasks? It's like, or would you address different agencies you feel are in scope with the demand, or how do you go with that? Because I know you love us especially dearly, so obviously you're pushing us all the time, and you say we're the best, but that's okay. But in general, It's okay. Nobody's listening. What's a process normally or how do you approach it?
So one major advantage is that I know 95% of the founders or people who purchase the listing who are in charge, that I'm personally in contact with them and that I spoke at least once or twice to them. So we don't have a computer-based algorithm just matching a service provider with a seller, but someone tells me like, yeah, I would love to have someone who is especially experienced in with clients who sell on Amazon Spain, for example. And then I know, okay, yeah, I have this agency in mind, or I have this other service provider, 3PL, whatever, um, in mind who I know they're especially experienced in these fields. So due to the fact that I'm working really very closely with the service providers and that I have a lot of insights and that I know them so well, based on that, I select them. And obviously, also when we have agencies, I also ask them, like, who are the clients you want to work with? Because we also have agencies who say, okay, sellers that don't make at least, let's say, 100K a month, we don't want to work with, which is obviously fine too. Everyone can like select their own clients,
Mm,
but then obviously I won't refer client like smaller sellers, beginner sellers to that agency because A, the agency doesn't want this, and B, it would probably be too expensive for a new seller. So yeah, so all
makes
these
sense.
factors come into play when I make that decision.
Okay, cool. When like if we go out of the agency stuff and we go more on the seller side or on the brand
Mhm.
sides or the people contacting you, which services you think make most sense to outsource, or where do you think you've got the usual ones probably about advertising, about different stuff. So two questions is in one is one, which are the most important ones you think, or you see the ones you would really recommend to outsource, and the second one is, are there any ones which people don't think about, where you're saying actually a lot of people don't think about outsourcing that, but it makes a lot of sense? So you've got two questions in one. Sorry.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say every service is super important, obviously, but obviously there are also some services where I think it's more important to hire them from the start or to outsource that from the start, which would include anything related to legal issues, because we have a lot of inquiries from sellers who come to us after they have screwed something up because they wanted to save money not hiring a lawyer or a suspension expert, but instead try to get reinstated themselves, for example. And then it's for them, it costs much more and it's more difficult to get reinstated like afterwards instead of them having hired like a professional in the first place. So everything related to legal issues and accounting and bookkeeping. Even if you're really great with numbers and you're really good at bookkeeping and accounting, I would still say it's worth to outsource it. Um, so you save a lot of time that you can like spend on other things that you might be better at. And
Mm.
yeah.
And by accounting and bookkeeping, do you mean specifically VAT or not only VAT? You mean any
Not only
aspect?
VAT. So obviously, when you expand as an US seller to Europe, then please hire a professional, because sales tax is not comparable to VAT. It's a whole different system and it's very hard to navigate through it. So leave that to a professional. But also, if you're a local, so let's take a German seller, and he starts selling on Amazon, then he should also like yeah, make use of a professional service.
Okay. Is there a service where, for example, you heard it and said, "Wow, that's something is really important, but nobody's asking for it"? Apart from the accounting side, is there any like hidden gem inside your catalog of vendors, let's say?
Yeah, let's take an example. In Europe, for example, we have a really strict packaging law that also differs from country to country. So there are EU-wide guidelines, but there are also specific guidelines for each country. And a lot of sellers are just not aware of this, and then have to pay high fines when they get caught because they didn't license their packaging. So yeah, we also have service providers for that.
Well, that, yeah, I can
It's very
relate to that.
niche.
No, it's very nichey, but we have some big customers who have brands where, or we have like hygiene products or things like that, and the labeling is like for them to change the packaging takes 6 months because they have to go through their own teams and regulations and so on. So it's true that a lot of, or if you're doing nutriments, how the legal facts you need to put on your packaging is very important. So that's, I think it's a great learning and a great insight. Do you have any example, like a very good, a nice success story of something which went really well, or a big win that the company had, or and also a big loss of like a fail of someone outsourcing, and it was learnings in each case?
So success stories we basically see every day because we also keep in touch with the clients after we referred them to a service provider. So after a week, I follow up, say, hey, is everything okay? And then after a couple of weeks, usually 6 weeks, I say, how is the cooperation going? So everything from bringing down ACEs, improving profit margins. So I don't know. I don't have a specific one that is really, I don't know, special, but
Hmm.
I have a huge, huge fail story for you, which is actually the founding story of
Ah, that's
Simondo.
the ones we like.
Yeah, actually, so Simondo is Toby's. Toby is my business partner. Toby's in my project, and Toby was an Amazon seller himself. And the reason he founded Simondo was because he got screwed over by certain service providers a lot. One time from a quality inspection, who said, "Yeah, your products are fine," but then the authorities in Germany like test ordered it and saw that it doesn't meet certain requirements, so he had to pay a high fine and like remove all of his inventory. Or he hired a 3PL that said like, yeah, we are able to deliver within 2 days, and then it took them several weeks. He went out of stock, seller rating went down, like, you know, the whole tale that's attached to making such a mistake. And he got his recommendations in Facebook groups, which is something not to do. If you're looking for a service provider, don't ask in Facebook groups, because a lot of companies just recommend themselves or their employer, or
Mm.
maybe it's a company of a friend, but not necessarily the best one. Yeah. And then he thought, okay, why is there not a place where I can go to find vetted, good Amazon experience service providers? And that's when he came up with the idea of Simondo. Yeah.
Okay, so you would say the learning is don't like to avoid fails is don't make sure you ask in something which is vetted or validated, so not a Facebook group, like not an open group maybe. Uh, it's like get a recommendation maybe from someone you trust. So be it Samondo or someone who's used it. So basically that would be the learnings maybe to avoid such issues. And like I assume that everybody on Samondo has been vetted by yourselves, or you've seen them in action.
Yeah.
So okay.
And
Um,
also, one thing I want
mhm,
to add, like, even if you ask your best friend for a recommendation, and let's say they recommend an agency to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are the right agency for you. If they sell in a whole other product category and the agency doesn't have any experience with that, then your best friend might have the best experience of his life, giving 5 stars, and maybe it's completely unsuitable for your project, and it won't work out. So it's always good if you get a recommendation, then you should still do your due diligence, ask certain questions before working with them, see how it feels, if you feel understood. Yeah, that's like my most important tip for hiring service providers is don't rush into it. Only if you're like suspended and losing money every day, then just reach out to us and say, hey, I'm suspended, and then we'll put you in touch immediately. But for everything else, take your time. Like, you don't have to hire an agency within 24 hours, you know?
hmm. And um, about how would you compare yourselves with Fiverr, for example, and what would be your advice looking at Fiverr or any other, like Fiverr comes to my mind, but you've got other websites with freelancers. What would is that similar? Because there's a good way of rating Fiverr guys or like freelancers. Their system is quite robust. How do you feel, between going to an agency, which is probably more expensive, and a Fiverr guy with a lot of five-star ratings, for example?
So as I said before, what makes the service providers on our website different is that they're all Amazon specialized, and usually because we have such a close, well-connected network, um, we only put the like approach the best of the best, and also not everyone can be part of Simondo. So when someone signs up, and it has been rumored that this person is a scammer, and I'll look into this and I will take the listing down, for example, which doesn't
Okay.
really happen on Fiverr. um, I personally think that Fiverr and Upwork are great places to get some jobs. For example, if you want to have a transparent background for your photo, like smaller things. But when it comes to building long term strategies, getting high quality photos, and so on, I think you really need someone who takes the time to understand you and your product, and um, yeah, really cares about the project, and not just gets paid like for a one time job, a flat fee, and then they rush into this and say, yeah, here's your result by.
Mm, okay, makes sense. Um, One question about you were talking about account suspension. So account suspension is the most stressful thing you can have as a seller. That the kind of thing where you start to sweat because the outcome is is never very clear, or you can't bet into how long it will take you to get unsuspended. Who would you recommend when you have an account suspension? You can have many reasons, right? Typically, when someone comes in and worried and say, "Okay, my account has been suspended," what's your process to decide who should help, and what kind of person do you recommend to help for account
Mm,
suspension?
it depends on the reason for suspension. So, for example, we have one super. I won't name names because I have to be objective. But we have one agency that is really great with counterfeit claims and all IP related issues. We have another great agency that is really good when it comes to a bad seller rating overall, so bad account health, and it depends on the location of the service provider. So when someone's UK account, like EU account, is suspended, then I will refer them to another agency than an US seller, for example. And
Okay.
yeah, that's basically how the process works.
Okay, and because you were talking about lawyers, so you would say that the lawyers are more maybe when it's about counterfeits, and then it would be an agency in the other cases, or what's
I
because
wouldn't
my
generally say
experience,
that.
yeah,
I wouldn't generally say
it,
that. And also, most of the suspension services on our site are like law firms. So they have different employees for different areas. So some of them are really attorneys when it comes to arbitration processes or litigation.
mhm,
So going to court. Then they really have actual real lawyers for that. But there are also suspension experts who are not lawyers, but they know the TOS really well, and are really great at writing appeal letters. So it really depends on the case. If it's only a reason that Amazon suspended you for that has no real legal implications, and it could also be a suspension expert who isn't a lawyer. And these are also usually cheaper to hire than law firms.
yeah. Yeah, because our experience of all the like suspension are non-legal related. It's more about they were afraid that someone they changed the name, or there was a name change in the legal name or something, or in the main user, or a document was wrong, or some credit card was blocked, or
Mm.
they claim you're linked to another account. So from your experience, is it mostly legal, non-legal, from what you see in terms of suspension? What other main reasons would you?
I would say it's 50-50.
Okay.
So, yeah, a lot of hijackers. So, a lot of people um, who have problems with hijackers in general. So, people who jump on the listings and then sell counterfeit items. Then sometimes there's a firm where one deals with Amazon and the other one deals with sending cease and desist letters to the person who is responsible for that and trying to take
Hmm.
this person to court, which is unfortunately often not possible because they sit somewhere in China, for example.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would say it's 50-50. Sometimes it's just a lot of times it's because they changed their credit card details and then Amazon suspended them, like just to be sure that no one has taken use of the
Yeah.
account. So yeah, really 50-50.
Okay. Interesting. If I go down to or go back to sellers trying to get services, is uh, w- do you have any KPIs or things which say, okay, uh, they should maybe consider before going to a service provider? What kind of KPI maybe they should put in place, or working process? Do you have any tips or insights on that?
So first of all, I want to say that we publish or published guides on how to hire XYZ. So basically for every service provider, because sometimes the question you need to ask yourself differ depending on who you're working with. But I would say there are like 3 or 4 main steps. So the first one is you have to be clear about what you want. You can't just say like, I want an agency or I want a consultant, like what for, you know? So you have to be clear about your situation, what you want to achieve. So set yourself some goals and define what you need. Then go look for service providers that fit in that category. For example, if you want consulting, you could have like a freelance consultant, a consulting firm, a full service agency. They all have their pros and cons, as I said, all described in our blogs. Um, but ask yourself, okay, who am I most comfortable working with? Like a single person or like a firm. Um, then interview them face to face. What I mean with face to face is not only on the phone but if possible with video, because I always I'm convinced of that when you have an initial talk with someone and you see them and you get like the vibes, would you work well together, do you feel comfortable around the other person, um, yeah, and then ask them questions in a video interview. And obviously also these questions differ a bit depending on who you're hiring, but yeah, the most important ones are, since when are you around, how did you get your experience with Amazon, have you been an Amazon seller yourself, how many employees do you have, what's your pricing structure, like really the basics. And then when you dive deeper into a certain category, for example, let's say product photography, like can you show me examples of your work? Or if you have a PPC agency, can you show me screenshots of X clients and so on, so you get a certain proof. And yeah, the last part is, as I said, don't rush into things. If possible, talk to 1 or 2 or 3 service providers, not more, because then you get like overwhelmed. But get like 1 or 2 recommendations, talk to both of them, and then just go with your gut feeling, and not always for the cheaper option. Don't always think the more expensive one is automatically the better one. Sometimes it's just because where they're located, how the prices differ. But yeah, just see who you're comfortable with. If their expertise matches the project you want to pursue, and yeah, then go for it. And never ever forget to set up a service contract. And if there are any things that you don't want anyone to know, also get them sign an
Hmm.
NDA.
India, yeah. And would you say that there is, or how do you approach the differences between Europe in terms of service providers, or are there differences in how the knowledge in certain countries are, or is there some specific countries which where a lot of good service providers are in, or things like that? How
So
do
the
like this Europe is wide and different, right? And the like Amazon Spain is very different than Amazon Germany. Do you have like specificities of the different countries also for the service providers, or is that a stupid question?
so the best
Could be.
agencies obviously are located in Luxembourg. No, but
Okay. This one
um,
is ticked.
I would say in every country where an Amazon marketplace is available, which now should be 7 with Sweden, right? Yeah. There
Yep.
are also great agencies in each country. Um, One thing to consider is we get a lot of inquiries from US sellers who want to expand to Europe. And then they say, yeah, I want to start with Amazon Germany. Can you recommend a German agency for me? Then I would never just introduce them to a German agency, but ask, have you thought a step further? So, do you really only want to sell on Amazon Germany, or would you also like to sell on all the other European marketplaces? Because then it would make more sense to find an agency that is specialized in all European marketplaces. Not trying to promote you too much here, but for example, you guys. So when someone comes to me and says, "Okay, I really want to be the best in all Amazon marketplaces in Europe," then I say, okay, I know e-commerce is experienced in all marketplaces. But
Mm,
when someone says, okay, I only want to sell on Amazon Germany, and I want to have a German-based provider, then I say, okay, that's fine. Then we'll take a
yeah.
specialist German agency.
And maybe my feeling that we know a lot of agencies which are great guys in France and the UK and Germany. That's where I would say most of the agencies are from, or at least in our network. Um, I get the feeling that a lot of agencies are really local focused in a sense. Like German agencies are very German, UK are quite British, and the French one are very French, and that there's not a lot of agencies which I've got this pan-European kind of positioning. Would you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like from my experience, there are certain agencies that claim to be experts in all marketplaces, but you know that like 99% of their clients are only selling on
Yeah.
that one marketplace that they're themselves located in, and they just say that they also do the other ones, but they might not be the most experienced in that. We don't have that many top-notch agencies who can deal with all European
Mm.
marketplaces on the same level.
Yeah, it has some challenges because of the languages, obviously.
Yeah,
In terms of south of Europe, do you have some agencies which are based in like Spain or Italy? Because these are smaller Amazon like markets or e-commerce markets. Do you have, is there also some agencies? Because I know some consultants there, but we don't know many agencies there. Are
I
they,
think
did you find
we
any
have
or?
one agency in Spain, but none in Italy because there's just no demand. I never got like in all those 2 years of Simondo, I never got one inquiry for an Italian agency because Italy is more one of those marketplaces that sellers also sell in when they go to Europe, but it's not like the first country to target. Usually they start with like UK or Germany, and then they say, okay, let's also do Spain, Italy, France,
Hmm.
Netherlands now, Sweden. So that it's more like it comes later. So yeah, but if there's any
Okay.
demand, and this is also something that I'm sort of proud of. If there's demand for something and we don't have it yet in our network, then I reach out. Yeah, you know, my LinkedIn post, for example. Then I reach out to our network, like, hey, does anyone know someone who's running an Italian based Amazon agency, and then I get recommendations from people who already know they're good in what they're doing. So I already trust the recommendations, and then reach out to them, vet them, and then I will make them part of our network. So yeah, if anyone's
Hmm.
looking for an Italian-based agency, you can also reach out. I will take care of that.
Yeah, I'm looking for an Italian
Mm.
agency. No, joking. If so, now is the time where if people have questions, do feel free to ask questions. I'll trot along with my own questions, but we're really happy to get some interactions with you guys. So feel free to reach out to both of us. I was thinking a bit about like future, looking into future. What do you think? Do you have any ideas or any insights of what kind of services will be needed in the future, or how some? That's the first question. The second question is some like advertising for me. I feel will change with a lot of automation involved and much more like yeah, IT tools. For example, do you have other insights about the future a bit?
Mm, so what we see is an immense increase in the demand for virtual assistants. So I think people trust working with virtual assistants more and more. Like some time back, there was a little bit of hesitation from the sides of the sellers because most virtual assistants are like classically they're based in the Philippines, and too many sellers were scared of being ripped off or getting their data stolen. But now you have so many great platforms like, I don't know, VAA Philippines, FreeUp, that really vet and train the virtual assistants. So people start to trust them more. So the demand really goes up because they can relieve you of many, many day to day tasks. So this is something that goes up. And yeah, traffic for seller tools always, because it's just not possible without them. But I'm not really a techie myself, so I can give you any insights on which suits or features are developed at the moment. I don't know.
And would you trust like the VAs, or would you? What would be your take on okay, uh, VAs versus agency, for example?
So a VA is way cheaper, obviously, because also the
Hmm.
cost of living in the Philippines are much lower. Um, we only have a handful of our own VAs that we know have worked with people that we have worked with, so we know they do a good job. But it's really hard to vet them, so I would always turn to a professional platform, as I said, VAA or Expert VA, Free Up. They're like popping out of the ground
Mm.
like trees, those platforms. Um, but usually, an agency or consultant is more invested in your project. A VA usually has a lot of different projects. It's not that common to hire a VA full time. And it's really hard to track what they're doing. There are certain tools, for example, that make screenshots automatically from their laptop. So you can see that they're only working on your project. But I don't know, maybe they have a second laptop, or you can never really track what they're doing. So in
And
that sense,
yeah,
you might feel more comfortable working with an agencies. And VAs are usually only suitable. I don't want to say only, but in many cases are suitable for like lower skill tasks, so day to day tasks, not
operational, yeah.
something. Yeah.
And what kind of costs, like average, of a VA today, like a monthly cost, generally, where do they lay?
It's really hard to say. So there are so many different payment structures. So you either say, okay, you have a flat fee, or you pay them by the hour. And from the hour, it ranges everything from $2 up to $100 an hour, $100 for a top trained, well experienced VA, but really depending on the scope of your project, how many hours they work on it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I can't really give a number. Too many factors involved.
That I was waiting for like some nice information. The last question before I jump into the question from the crowd is, my concern always when I hear about VAs is the scalability of it, because each VA is a challenge by itself, because you need to train him or her. You need to make sure he's delivering. He's so if you get one great from a VA agency, you don't know the second one will be good, or the third one. It's like, how do you approach this idea of scalability? Because for us, is our service is obviously we more clients we have, the more people we need to have, and having employees, you train them, you keep them. It's a different approach. With VAs, how do you see that with scalability?
I know how one of our service providers does it. So it's also a VA platform. So they give you one, it's like your main VA that you teach and train, and they really deep dive into your project. And usually they work like 30 hours a week for you, or sometimes even more. And then if you need additional ones, your main VA will train the other VAs like beneath them. So this is something that you don't really have to do. And also your main VA can
Yeah.
track what the VAs below are doing. You can also like fix it in the payment structure. You can say, okay, if the let's say the normal VAs screw up, then your main VA will also get like punished by being paid less. So they also have an incentive to keep the VAs on the lower level like doing a good job. So this is one way to work around that. But yeah, it's really hard if you have a team and you don't have a VA team leader. Then it can happen that it's more work to track what the VAs are doing than just doing the
Doing it
tasks
yourself. Yeah.
yourself, which is something you should try to prevent.
Okay. Good insight. So, first question I have here is: are end clients paying through Simondo to service providers, or are service providers like invoicing directly to
The
customers?
service providers are invoicing directly to the client. So first of all, using Simondo is completely free of charge for all sellers looking for service providers. Um, we are not like a marketplace because we don't really believe in flat fees. So we don't believe in putting a price tag on a service package, for example. We think this is something that should be negotiated individually. So we mainly dare to establish the contact. So let's say I refer a seller to e-Comas, then I won't have a say in what you're charging the client, but the client talks about his project. You present your approach. You two have the call, and depending on the scope of the project, what services have to be performed, and so on, you will make an offer. And if the seller doesn't like it, they can come to us again and say, hey, they're too
Mm,
expensive. But usually we're pretty good with matching the budget with the pricing of the service providers.
okay. Another question we're getting is: do you have in mind any other European e-retailers that you'd recommend a brand to focus on once they've established a good presence on Amazon?
Can you
So,
can I see
like,
the question anywhere?
it's in the Q&A.
I can't click on that somehow. Okay, can you
Okay, you haven't been good. So the question basically, I can translate it into proper English,
no, you can also
in
just
French
repeat it.
English.
It's fine.
No, the question is basically other marketplaces. Like once someone is established on Amazon, would you recommend, like, which marketplace would you recommend to go to after once Amazon is on the control, let's say?
That really depends on which country you're selling in. In the Netherlands, for example, it's bol.com is the biggest online marketplace there. In Germany, eBay is pretty big, and Real. In other countries, it's Rakuten. Rakuten, do I pronounce that correctly? So yeah, it really
Very
really
nice.
depends on the country, and if people want to grow their business beyond Amazon, they can also reach out to us because we have a lot of service providers who have like a multi-channel approach and also serve other marketplaces. Like Walmart, for example, is also pretty big in the US.
Yes, obviously. And Yeah, you don't have like from your experience people who are going to, if you were looking at the pan-European one, you don't have like a recommendation of which ones you would go first to, or which ones are the easiest to work with, or success stories of specifically going on other expanding onto other marketplaces, specifically in Europe. Like the US is quite, Walmart is an easy one.
I know a lot of success stories from Amazon sellers also selling on eBay, but I mainly know those stories because I'm based in Germany myself, and eBay is pretty popular here. Um, I would have to guess if I'm talking about the other countries. I'd rather be honest and say I don't know.
No, no,
I
it's
would chat with an expert.
we like honesty. And talk if we drill down on the eBay thing is, do you know if the people which are going on eBay are using Amazon logistics to deliver eBay orders, or are they using a different logistics route?
I'm
I
also
know it's a
part of
very specific question, but yeah.
I'm also part of some eBay seller groups, and I know that some are using the Amazon Logistics network, but a lot of them also fulfill themselves, like or let their 3PL
Directly, yeah.
fulfill their orders.
Okay. And in your listings, do you have also 3PL which are Prime eligible in Europe?
Yes.
Okay. In all countries or only in specific countries? Because I know that's sometimes difficult to find.
We have one in Germany, two in Germany, and in the UK we also have one or two, but I don't know.